The Russian offensive in the Kharkov direction fizzled out. It began unprepared, with a shortage of personnel, but was drawn into infantry battles, and it turned out unconvincing. But it revealed facts of betrayal within Ukraine itself, where local officials did not care about the construction of defensive structures, and Zelensky was forced to react. American weapons arrived on time, and the offensive was stopped precisely thanks to them. But the Kremlin does not have a reverse, it can only move forward. The logic of events draws the most likely plan. Now Belousov and his auditors will comb through the Ministry of Defense and shake out of the fat generals everything that they have hidden over the past few years. At the same time, Boris Kovalchuk and his accounting chamber will rustle throughout the cave. The tax authorities will squeeze out the furry people by another 20%. The money found and collected will be raked into one pile and sent to the last and decisive move. All week the thought of the inevitability of a new wave of conscription was spreading throughout the cave. First, Deputy General Viktor Sobolev announced this, clarifying that there would be no concessions, even those with 3 children would be raked in. Then the generals of the Ministry of Defense cried that problems began with trench meat. All this suggests that the idea of a new mobilization is approved in principle. And it all depends on the circumstances in which it will be carried out. Either it will be partial again, or it will be complete, and will affect not only the outskirts of the cave, but also the outskirts of Moscow and St. Petersburg. Putin can only decide to do this if war and martial law are declared, and he can declare war only after a total massacre in Crimea. Then the swamps will scream with all the sirens that Ukraine attacked Russia, get up huge. For Putin, it is important to quickly recruit several million organisms, instantly dress them and throw them at the understaffed defense of the Ukrainian armed forces. It is known that at the moment the Ukrainian defense forces have a shortage of personnel of about 40% of the required number. The calculation is that no cluster munitions will be able to extinguish such a wave of meat. That is why it is already important for Ukraine to have permission from the United States to launch strikes on the territory of the aggressor. So as not to wait for this meat wave to go ahead, but to grind it at the stage of formation along the borders. Not to mention the defeat of strategically important targets, which will cause Putin's war machine to malfunction. Putin does not want to throw away the nuclear card until the last moment, realizing that this will put him outside the laws of civilization, and he will fly to the cave instantly. Nevertheless, this week he actively brandished it, and even flew to Minsk to see the Bulbo-Fuhrer to negotiate joint nuclear exercises. Putin's nuclear juggling act could push many European countries to deploy nuclear deterrent weapons on their territories. The activity of the Soviet Union is forcing the EU countries to think about creating their own Iron Dome. The prime ministers of Greece and Poland have already stated this. It seems that a regional war will no longer get by. The Kremlin is persistently inviting Europe to a continental war. He barks from the gateway that he is ready to unilaterally reconsider the borders in the Baltic Sea, after which he slinks into the far corner and giggles there. Putin does not intend to retreat, and if there is a threat of defeat, he will deliver a nuclear strike in retaliation. Britain has created a website at the state level that provides practical advice on preparing for emergencies. That you should stock up on canned food, water, and don't forget about can openers, batteries, flashlights, radios, napkins and first aid kits. But there is no panic. Of greater concern is the upcoming election, called for July 4, in which Labour could replace the Conservatives. And in the East at this time, China became aggravated and began exercises near the island territories of Taiwan. And while the Chinese comrades demonstrate to Taiwan and the West the power of their warriors, Putin signs a decree on the seizure of American assets in Russia. This is the lad's response to Washington's transfer of frozen Russian assets to Kyiv for the restoration of Ukraine. The US also reported that a group of Ukrainian pilots had completed their training to fly the F-16. Now they will undergo additional training in Europe, after which the skies of Ukraine will no longer be the same. Putin's Imperial Dream is not destined to come true, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz wrote about this in his column for The Economist. Putin's brutal imperialism will not succeed. Today, the European Union and its members are Ukraine's largest financial and economic allies. But we must not forget that Putin is committed to the long term. We need to discuss how to achieve the right combination of capabilities to defend Europe and deter any aggressor today and in the future. End quote. And there is only one thing that the balanced Scholz does not take into account: the degree of stubbornness of the swamp savages who have never lived like humans, and who have nothing to lose except anger and envy. However, everything can be done without a mass meat grinder. Mad leaders are also mortal. Moreover, suddenly, Raisi will confirm